President Trump's trade war intensifies. Investors reacting after the president threatened to double tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, raising them to 50%. Moments ago at the White House, the president speaking on the economy while buying a Tesla from Elon Musk.
I think they're going to do great. I think our country had to do this. We had to go and do this. They've taken away, other countries have taken away our business. They've taken away our jobs.
ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks is live on the North Lawn along with Bankrate Chief Financial Analyst Greg McBride. And Greg, I want to start with you on this. First off, what's your read on the markets today? The Dow ending the day in the negatives. Is this concern easing at all for Wall Street?
Not yet, because there's still so much uncertainty. And if there's one thing that businesses, consumers, and investors can't stand, it's uncertainty, because it's difficult to plan. And so that's why you've seen not only a pretty notable pullback, but also a lot of wild gyrations day to day, even intraday, just because the news is coming fast and furious. Tariffs are on again, off again, higher, lower, all those kind of things. It just adds to the uncertainty, adds to investor nervousness. And you've seen that reflected in the pullback we've seen over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, and Mary Alice, because of that uncertainty, the president received a lot of questions about the economy today. That R word, recession, was thrown out, I understand. So what is the White House saying about all of this right now?
Yeah, the White House has tried to downplay fears of a recession, but not going as far as to say that Americans shouldn't potentially be worried about one. Remember, over the weekend, it was interesting that when the president was asked about whether Americans should be bracing for the potential of a recession, he hesitated. And his team today, his White House press secretary, went as far as to call this a moment of transition in the economy. She essentially said that Americans could feel short-term pain while these tariffs are put in place, but doubled down on the concept of tariffs, doubled down on the work the president is doing. The president himself, of course, doubling down on these tariffs and the threat of additional tariffs. He hasn't talked specifically about the stock market ups and downs, the stock market sell-offs from the last few days. The press secretary didn't want to go there either. She kind of called it a momentary snapshot in time. But of course, like you were just showing pictures of, the president was really supporting one stock, at least one company, at least Tesla. We know Tesla has taken a huge hit in the last few weeks, and the president wanted to basically give his friend Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, a leg up, or at least a little bit of a promo, talking about how he didn't think that Musk and his company should be taking a hit for the work that it is doing. He did face a lot of questions in this moment from reporters about, frankly, the optics of this. Here's this moment where tens of thousands of federal workers have lost their jobs, where Americans who are watching the stock market sell off are worried about their retirement, retirees worried about their assets there in the stock market. If these were the right optics to basically be talking about plans to buy a rather expensive electric car, the president, of course, dismissing all of that, and again, continuing to double down on these threats around tariffs. Alex.
Well, and Greg, to Mary Alice's point, it is quite remarkable that amidst all this uncertainty on the economy, you have the president there buying a luxury vehicle. I believe that was a Model S that we saw, which is one of Tesla's premium vehicles. But I am curious. The White House press secretary was asked about this earlier, and she's blamed a lot of this uncertainty on the economy on the Biden administration. In your estimation, is that fair?
No, not entirely. Now, we did see a nice run in the stock market with almost no downside volatility for months on end. Valuations were really, really high. And so a lot of stocks were really priced for perfection. And you introduce just a little bit of uncertainty, and all of a sudden it clouds that view of perfection, and you start to get some pullback in prices. And so that's why you've seen like tech stocks, even some that wouldn't necessarily be impacted by tariffs, really taking it on the chin over the past couple of weeks. But this concept of tariffs and all the uncertainty that's introduced with regard to the economy and that you're seeing reflected in the stock market, that's from an economic perspective, that's really, something that's been brought on just within the past several weeks.
Gotcha. Well, and Mary Alice, the president is also threatening to increase tariffs on cars from Canada if it doesn't back down.
Yeah, back down in what way? I think that's been part of the tough sort of road for investors, tough for companies to navigate in this moment, is what exactly is it going to take for these threats of tariffs, for an escalating trade war to de-escalate? What exactly is this White House asking of Canada, of Mexico? We've heard everything from wanting them to do more on finding fentanyl, but also wanting to encourage U.S. companies to onshore manufacturing jobs. And I think that uncertainty about what exactly Canada would need to do is exactly what is playing into so much of that market sort of fears and jitters and sell-off. But you're right. We've heard the president over the last few days talk about not only those tariffs that he put in place last week, 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico, but additional tariffs on metals, on steel and aluminum, and threats of even more tariffs on steel and aluminum beyond what was originally proposed, because basically he didn't like the tough talk coming out of Canada, he said. We've now heard at least the leader of Ontario, of course, the most populous state there in Canada, talking about how he plans to come to the United States to have a meeting with officials, cabinet officials here over the next few days, trying to lower the temperature. We'll see if that works, if it'll get the president to back off some of these additional threats of additional tariffs, specifically on steel and aluminum. But we just don't know at this point. I think, again, what we've been talking about, all that uncertainty, not great for business.
Well, and to that point, speaking about Ontario, it seems as though Ontario has walked back some of its tariffs threats of 25%, and also that threat about suspending energy to the U.S. But Greg, I want to get you to put this into perspective for us. The S&P 500 has more than doubled within the last 5 years. So how significant is the sell-off that we're seeing, especially for those who are watching their 401k accounts declining with all this market influx?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing really is kind of the normal type of volatility that we see. We got lulled to sleep with a period where the market was going up and we had very little downside volatility. But we tend to see a stock market correction. That is a decline of 10 to 20% every year, year and a half. We're not even at the 10% mark yet. We kissed it during the day, but stocks haven't actually closed at 10% down from the record high that was set February 19th. So we're not really even into correction territory. People always act as if the sky is falling whenever there is volatility, but I want to put this in context. This is just very normal, and a lot of it is because stocks were really priced for perfection. You introduce uncertainty, it clouds that view of perfection, and all of a sudden we've seen some pullback in markets. So the economy was coming from a position of strength. As long as we don't see the economy and the fundamentals really deteriorate in the months ahead, I think what this represents is just another tremendous buying opportunity for long-term investors.
Yeah, a lot of people always talking about that old adage to buy the dip. Mary Alice and Greg, thank you very much.